Hello, mech fans. This is Duncan Fisher. Hold on firmly to your mana potions, fireballs, and familiars, because you are tuning in to your regularly scheduled episode of the First Circuit Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the First Circuit Podcast, episode number 124. Your hosts today include Lars.
Hey, how's it going?
And Oldbob.
Hey.
Abida.
I cut down trees, I eat my lunch, I go to the lavatory.
Because you're a lumberjack.
And myself, Ian Dozeri. As for topics today, we've got some really quick stuff with the RESOLUTE event and sale. And then we're obviously going to talk about the big thing, the change to the pilot skill weighting shifting. And we've also gathered some data for you from our own games that we're going to go over and see if we can get any nice information out of those. Alright, so to quickly dive into our really quick and simple topic, the RESOLUTE sale for the Canada Day and Freedom Day. There's an in-game sale, hero sale. Hero makes 50% off MC price, mech base 50% off MC, colors, cockpit items also 50% off, and all mech packs you can buy on the web store 30% off real money. So I guess if you've got MC to spend, or if you want to support PGI by dropping some real money, now would be the time to do it.
Yeah.
I always save up my MC for heroes and mech bays and somewhat colors, maybe warhorns. So this is very good for the MC part. Packs are not really that good value for money. It's usually just best to play the game, earn up your MC for mech bays, C bills for for the mechs themselves, and MC for heroes. And now is the time to get those mech bays and heroes.
Yeah, especially also because there is also the usual event, and last night they gave you plenty of like MC from the event to even just go ahead and buy some of this.
Yeah. So just to reiterate, dropping money on Mechwarrior Online at this point is kind of a weird thing because nothing is really great value. But if you do want to drop money, either to speed up your game or to support PGI, I do think mech packs are technically still the better value compared to other options you have. So now would indeed be the time. Don't get the hero upgrades by the base packs.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
How about the Solar 7 pack? What do you guys think about that? Like being 50% off?
Oh.
Yeah, good one.
Yep.
Oh yeah, so
Yeah,
the Solar 7
Yeah.
was at full price. It's a great value at 30% off. Amazing.
Definitely.
All right, the event. A lot of easy ones, a lot more tricky ones as well. But at least to start with, just play, get some basic match score, get some wins, and you'll get the premium time, which is nice.
Yeah.
There are some sillier or more annoying ones, like get 3 damage with either side's flamers, which is going to lead to lots of silly builds, and destroy 1 UAV.
And last night we saw so much flamer builds last night.
Yep.
So they were very prevalent. But there were mostly light mechs with flamers.
Yeah.
Take your streaks and or cool builds.
Yeah.
My most favorite event is Destroy 1 UAV. I think I played like 7 or 8 matches and no one dropped a UAV. Or when they did, someone else shot it down before me. So it's like, okay, I'm not going to get that event, I guess. I'm going to get the fireworks.
Yeah, so basically the event is play the game, make sure you drop at least 1 or 2 games with the flamers from each side, and pay attention when there's a UAV, and grab it fast.
And jump up with the
And
flamer.
then you're gonna get some good stuff.
Yeah.
And pop UAVs as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, pop UAVs, help your fellow mech pilot, but I'd say this is a decent event. It's not hard. You can get in and combine with the sale. I'd say it's a win-win.
Yep, not too bad, not too
Yeah.
silly.
Yep. So I guess in total, what is the amount of MC we can get from the event? And which is like probably the biggest thing we can do.
It's
I think
400.
it's 8 bundles. Yeah, 400.
Yeah, 400.
All right.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah,
bad.
so
Pretty good.
like basically one thing I love about PGI, they hand out MC like candy, so that's kind of nice.
That's
definitely
2.5 mech base.
Yeah, definitely.
On
Or
top of the
cockpit
mech
items.
bay.
On top of the mech bay, yeah.
in the event.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
True. But earn 9,000 match score. Or damage done. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, damage done.
I mean,
That shouldn't be too
Mhm.
hard though.
That's not hard
normally
at all.
Yeah.
normally the mech bays are more valuable to new players and whatnot, but if you're a new player starting this week, I mean, you're not starting out with potatoes anymore. But
Yeah,
at
it's
least if
Yeah,
you-
exactly.
which I would say segue into what do we have now? We're all tier
PSR
3
reset.
guys. Yeah,
Yeah.
PSR reset.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm below tier 3 because I've been testing a lot of things.
So what are you
Oh,
like now?
oh.
Like 4.
I'm getting there. I'm trying.
Okay, so
So
what's
from
the best way to
carry-
dive into this?
carrying
Oh.
on from last week, at least, we said there were, 4 sort of ways to do this, and we suggested that, we didn't like sorting it only by teams and saying only the team that wins gains and loses. Well, funnily enough, at least they have gone with the teams option, but they've the way they've implemented it means that winning and losing does have an impact, but in the end, it's still just ordered by your by your individual performance. So if you do well and you're on the losing team, you can still gain match score, but you will not gain as much as the winners will.
Yeah,
He's trying to carry.
which I think is a great way to do it, in my opinion. Since it might, because I know if you lost and you did a really good job, sometimes you would end up going down. But I think Ian and I, we played a few matches last night, and there were some times where we had a losing match, but our PSR was still going up because we just performed decent. But I think probably the best thing to do right now is, do you guys want to look over Paul's, post on the forum and take a look at his formula here, which is the PSR change
Yeah.
equals, and I think Ian Biters is kind of more of your ball game.
I mean, the
so-
formula is actually
Yeah.
very simple. So you have a base number, whether you win or lose, that's positive or negative. That's basically where you start from. And then you have the chance using your personal match score to up that number and get a positive pilot skill shift. And 60% of your match score is compared to your team's performance, and the other 40% is compared to your total performance. So that's basically all there is to it. Like, there's a component whether you win or lose, there's a component of how well you did compared to your team, and there's a component of how well you did compared to everyone in the whole game. And that's kind of it.
Yeah. The idea, at least, comparing it to your team is if the whole team does poorly, it doesn't necessarily reflect so badly against yourself. And there's also comparing it to everyone. So if it's a really close match and everyone's killing each other, that will also have an impact. So yeah, it's a simple formula, but it does a good job of accounting for individual performance as part of a team and as part of the whole match, basically.
Okay.
And that's what we've sort of seen carried out through the data that we pumped. Ian has done some matches and he's pumped the values into the formula, and we'll be looking at that later on. One other thing, a really big thing, just that we haven't ever seen before, was Paul finally gave us data on the players per tier
Yes.
in this forum
Yeah.
post. Now, we had always assumed that the gaining of tiers was always somewhat an XP bar. As long as you played, you would get eventually to tier 1, and so therefore we said that you get a hockey stick graph where everyone's sort of just working their way along the experience bar, and at the end, everyone's stuck at tier 1. As we see, though, at least of the aggregated stats of the just players who played through the last 3 months, it's kind of a reverse hockey stick. Most of the weight is towards tier 5. It's quite unlike what we supposed. Now,
it's a skill bar. It's just a negative skill bar.
well, part of the things to recognize, or at least I would point out, is just that it is an XP bar. So only so many players have actually worked all the way to tier 1. Only so many players have played the hundreds of matches needed to reach tier 2. It could still be that's the case. It's also a question of it's a summation amount of just all the players who happened to log in and play a match over the last 3 months. It does not take account of how active these players are.
Right.
Obviously, the players in tier 1 could be way more active. They could play like twice as many matches as those in tier 4 or tier 5. But on this graph, they look obviously like half as much as tier 5 players. And particularly in tier 5, that can be a lot of people just trying out the game or coming back to the game just to try out a couple of matches and then they leave again.
Yeah, because what you need to consider is when you started a game before this change was implemented, you started kind of at the bottom of tier 4. So if you lost your first like 5 or 6 games, you're immediately gonna be in tier 5. So if you try out a game, play a few games, lose a few games, and then just decide it's not your jam, your account is gonna sit in tier 5, and it's gonna stay there forever. And that's how I would explain at least a significant chunk of this high tier 5 number.
Yeah. It's still a fair number of people, of course, spread out. Like if we just put all the new players into tier 5, all the rest is actually fairly evenly spread out between tiers 1, 2, 3, and 4. Ultimately, though, there's only so much we can guess by that. But just technically speaking, you could almost guess that, imagine if, tier 1 players are a bit of a step up in skill from tier 2, and tier 2 is a bit of a step up in skill from tier 3, etc., etc. Like, if they are actually roughly balanced out by skill, it's not a bad system to use as a matchmaker. It's not terrible, at least. It's not where everybody is lumped into one group, as we assumed, though it all depends on how much these different groups played and how skilled they really are.
Right.
Yeah, if only all of these guys were online at one time, that would be amazing.
Yeah, because I mean, we got what, like 15,000 in tier 5 there, almost 16,000 in tier 5. We've never seen a peak number of that many people online at once.
Yeah, it's a funny question as well. Like, just it's over 3 months, so you need to be able to, you can't just divide it by 3 to say that's the number of players per month, because it all depends just over the last 3 months how many people are turning up for what changes, or how many are consistent players in the player base. It's just really hard to tell.
Yeah, exactly. So
Still,
yeah.
it gives us a glimpse of the old system, but now they're trying to move towards a new system, and that's what at least Paul's trying to show in the next graph. Just he wants to have that bell curve formation. Majority in tier 3, where if you're really bad or really good, you start sliding towards the just ever decreasing minority towards the towards the ends of the tiers.
Yep. And another thing we got in this change is the total pilot skill weighting is no longer going to range between 0 and 3,750, but rather 0 and 5,000. So in order to reach from the bottom of a tier to the top of a tier, you'll need exactly 1,000 points of pilot skill rating, which is normally would just tell us nothing. But this time, since we do have the formula, we can actually calculate how long that's going to take, which is cool.
Yeah.
Something new.
Did you guys calculate it though?
Yeah, I mean, we did collect a bunch of data, and not going too deep into it just yet because we're going to dive in just in a second. But if you do really well, on average, you're going to get a positive shift of like 20, 25-ish.
20 or so is like, if you're the best players, they're getting about 20, and the worst players are losing about 20. Average players are gaining 10, below average are sort of losing 10. Just very rough ballpark numbers. We'll get into it when we actually get into the thing.
Yeah.
So technically, if you're doing well every single game, you need 2,500 pilot skill rating to reach from the middle where you start to the absolute highest end, and that's 125 games.
Yes. You'll need to play 100 or so games to get to the very top, and you need to lose 100 or so games consistently every time to get to the bottom. And the fact is, even if you're one of the better players,
you only need 75 games to reach tier 1, because it doesn't matter whether you're at the bottom or top of tier 1. The matchmaker doesn't account for that.
Not much, no.
So, yeah, if you're consistently good, it's 75 games to get into tier 1.
But if you're losing and winning,
Yeah, though in actual fact, at least, you're going to be winning and losing about half your matches. Even if you're good, you're winning about 2/3 of your matches. And when you lose, at least that 1/3 time you lose a match if you're a good player, you might just break even, so to speak. So roughly speaking, you could say, instead of, to reach the very top, it's like 75 matches if you did everything perfectly to reach tier 1. But realistically, you're going to take 100, 125, 150 matches, even if you're good, to reach tier 1, just because you're going to win matches, lose matches. You're going to have matches where you don't always perform so well, or somebody else just carries the team and you didn't get a chance to put work in edgeways. So yeah, just like with the previous system, it takes a long time to get anywhere, and
Yeah.
that's
So
going to be
assuming the worst case, it's gonna take you about 40 hours of constant playing to reach tier 1.
hmm
It's not too bad if you win all the time, right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. No, I mean, I'm going with like Bida said, like 150 games. Let's assume a game takes you 15 minutes, like 10 minutes play, 5 minutes queue and post game and such. It's gonna be 40 hours roughly.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, and I mean, and if you're one of the people who play all all the time, that's maybe a week's worth of time. If you're more of a casual player, maybe like a month, give or take.
Yeah, it's interesting question is, of course, yeah, like if you're a really dedicated player, you're going to rack up 40 hours in a week or so. You know, at least the very, very dedicated players, they can shoot up to the top of the tier. But there's plenty of people who just play a couple of matches, you know, in the weekend or whatnot, and it's going to take them quite a few weeks to rack up that 40 hours. And the thing is as well, if you're the very best, it'll take you 40 hours to reach the top of tier 1. But if you're kind of average, you would say those 40 hours, you would still see yourself going from tier 3 to possibly tier 2. Because, you know, you're putting 40 hours into it, you're still going to get, you know, a shift over time. That's still plenty of matches, 150 matches after all. It's just then, as I sort of talked about last week, a question if you're that slightly above average player, will you still just keep be doing kind of well and then keep gaining? So instead of 150 matches, you'll take 300 matches to reach tier 1. But again, it just all depends on how much the different skill levels play and how long it takes to sort out.
Yeah.
okay.
Losing side, though, it's a funny question of if you're losing a lot, how much those players play and how much we'll see people dropping out of the game, or how much people will actually be going down into the lower tiers, because it won't feel too good if the game recognizes, or at least we said, you know, it feels a lot better if you start at the bottom and climb your way up,
Yeah.
rather than falling down.
Just like the 1B, right? The 1B system, where you don't actually lose. Like everyone starts at tier 5, but you always keep on going up. Correct? The 1B system, I think that was, or 1C.
So in when we looked at all the 4 systems, what A, B, C, blah blah blah, they were all with the assumption of starting everyone in the middle in tier 3.
Oh, okay.
I was the one who was just suggesting that, you know, if we had more time or a different design ethos, you would start everybody at the bottom still, and just you'd make it so that you would get different PSR gain according to what tier you were in. So it's really easy to gain in tier 5, kind of easy in tier 4, and then neutral in tier 3.
Okay.
And that way, it's a different system. That's what I was suggesting.
Okay.
All right, we got those out of the way, so perhaps we should actually get into just what we sort of learned about, you know, once we did some looking in the graphs.
Yes. So last night, myself and Ian, we hopped in for what it was maybe like an hour and a half, 2 hours, give or take. You know, it wasn't. We had maybe like 8 or so matches, and I think you may have chosen like the
10 to
ones.
12 matches we
Yeah.
roughly had.
So yeah, so I think Ian, you're able to crunch some numbers and data and bring us some charts. So, I guess what did you find out?
Well, I'm actually gonna let Bida open because Bida was
Okay.
the one who's really interested in the charts, and then I'm gonna talk about some of the data behind the charts.
Okay.
So for
sounds
those of you just listening on SoundCloud, there's gonna be a link in the description, which you should check out if you can. If you can't check it out right now, it might be wise to pause the podcast because you're probably not gonna get too much out of this.
All right.
Yeah. Talking about the charts, Bida, go ahead.
All right. I was a big fan of putting up the charts because I think it just does such a good job of helping us visualize how it relates match score to your play, you know, just how it draws the lines. Because if you look at all these graphs, all of them are fairly linear. There's no, you know, exponential stuff going on. The better you do, the more match score, well, the more the matchmaker will recognize your efforts, so to speak, on a linear scale. So, if you do 200 match score, 400 match score, it's all going to be plotted on this linear graph, and through all the matches, we can see that. To explain our graphs a little bit, we have, whilst it's not consistently color coded, we have colored the two teams blue and red so that you're able to tell the difference between the individual performances. Game 2, for example, is actually a very good example. I think that you can see there's a fair number of players who get similar match score in that match, but the blue team are always below the red team. Like they're a fair, for all of these, it's like about 7 or 8 player skill rating. You'll lose about 7 or 8 player skill rating for the win or the loss, and we can see that by two almost parallel lines next to each other, which is quite clear in game 2. A very good other example, just we've also noticed, is of course in game 3. Game 3, the winning side, the red team, had some players who did exceedingly well. They got like 600 plus match score. Everybody else is getting around 200-ish match score, with some of the reds still doing above average. So those players who did really, really well are getting something like 26 gain on match score, and they're really far ahead. And this pushes the whole line and everybody else to the bottom end of the graph. So if you or a couple of friends are doing exceedingly well, it's going to push everybody else down. They're not going to be making much gains, and lots of the enemy team, if they're doing poorly, because you're deleting them very quickly, are going to make a lot of losses. They're going to get, lose 19 or so match score.
That's actually a funny thing, because that's something I've talked about with Lars yesterday. When we talked about who we'd like to play with those first few matches, we talked about whether we wanted to play with you, Bida. And we did the rough calculations and came to the conclusion that playing with you would, on average, get us some extra skill points for winning, but we would most likely lose the same amount or even more, because you soak up match score that we then in turn can't get. So on average, it would be beneficial for us to not play with you.
You're not invited anymore, Fighter.
Oh no!
But mainly, if you play with us, it'd be actually beneficial, because you would take all the score for yourself. So
yeah,
I would shoot up more and more. Yeah. Yeah. Whilst we'll get into all the nitty gritty with the numbers, I would say just on average, at least, the scales are usually fairly samey. You're always stuck within plus 20 or minus 20. You're not getting plus 40 usually, even at least within this sample size that we've gotten here. It's plus or minus 20 player skill ranking, and the crossover point is the total team's match score usually, which is around 250 match score. That's where most players are sort of doing. So if every game you're doing more than 250 match score, you should see your player skill rating go up eventually. Even if you're on the losing team, just as long as you keep that average match score, you're doing good. And that's the basics that I got from the graphs, basically. It's linear, and it's always, the same kind of losses and gains. Just do better than average. So yeah, this does exactly what you want it to do, as far as it is ranking players.
I personally enjoy game 3. Like, game 3 is a very wide amount if you look at it.
Yeah, like there's probably a lance or so of people in the group who are doing exceedingly well, and they absolutely stomp everybody else. So that was probably a stomp match. And so the matchmaker in response is giving them a lot of points. It's trying to shove them into the upper tiers and recognize their potency, whereas everybody else has to sort of take a bit of a hit whilst that's happening.
Yeah, game 3 was a 12-3, definitely a stomp, and the 3 guys doing extraordinarily well. I don't know if they're professional. Like, I don't know if they actually participate in the World Championship, but they are a high-skilled tier 1 team.
Do you know who they are?
Yeah.
Like, can you bring up the chart there? Go see who was playing.
Oh, like the end screen?
Yeah.
If you switch over to data, and
got it.
below the table for game 3, there I've added screenshots.
Okay, I got it right here.
Oh,
you just need
just
need to max them out so I can actually read it.
Okay, got it here.
Game 2 is a question.
Oh, they're evil. That's why.
Fairly...
Yeah, they're evil.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They're evil. That's
Yeah.
Bob's determination.
Yeah.
Just good players, they're evil.
They're evil. That's funny.
No, they're in the clan. Evil just for
Yeah.
everybody.
They're not evil, but yeah,
Um,
they're in the clan evil. Yeah.
Yeah, game two. I like using that as an example because there's a fair amount of similar match scores, and there's even on the losing team one person who does very well.
Yeah.
In this game, it's kind of close. There's at least there's 6 mechs alive at the end, but at least we could see because both sides did fairly well. The graph turns out to be, even the losing side, they're gaining match score. And there's the one person who was on the losing side who got a lot of match score. He still gained 20 PSR. So again, this is how the system should work. That it recognizes the good players and shoves them up in tier. Particularly at least in these close matches where even though he's on the losing side, he's not just with the proposed systems in the past where the losing team only lose PSR. That good player would have they would have got like zero. They would have moved nowhere. It would not have recognized his skill. But under this system, it does. And yeah, I'm quite happy with what we've seen from these results.
Yeah, same.
Right, hand it over to you, Ian, if you want to talk about the numbers a bit more in detail.
Yeah, sure. Let's switch over to the data part of the table, Bob, if you can pull up on your
Yeah, go ahead.
screen recording.
Go ahead.
One of the things that isn't probably anything to really note, but just fun to look at. Bob, can you take the cell in F2 and turn that 1 into a -1, just to see what happens?
Okay, we're at?
It's comment
Fox
only.
got-
Okay, comments.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Oh.
maybe Ian, if you want to go ahead and
Yeah,
change
go
that.
ahead.
Ian,
Okay, in
you
that case,
have
I'm
to
gonna
change that.
I don't have
share
permission,
my
man.
screen for.
Well, don't
I'm gonna
worry.
share it for just a second.
No, Ian, it's fine because his chart will update once you change it.
Yeah.
Since we're all in it.
Oh yeah,
We're recording each other's perspectives. We'll
Yeah.
figure it out later.
there
Yep.
we go.
There we
we're
go.
we're in Google land. We can do this now. So
Google is fun.
yeah.
Yeah, like this is just kind of fun to see what would happen if you switch around who won and lost while keeping the same match score. And I'm just gonna encourage you guys, if you have access to any browser and can open this doc, just play around with numbers a bit and see what happens. It's really fun to do. Okay, but realistically, some things that I've noticed. So the average pilot skill change is something I found interesting because obviously the higher your average change is, the more total points are available to distribute onto the players. And it seems like the average skill change is between 5 and 13. So that's kind of like the max you can either win or lose. Like at min, you're gonna win or lose 5, and at most, on average, 13. So if you play 1,000 matches, that's kind of, yeah, it's statistics, probably not too interesting for most people. In total, the average is 0, so it is still 0 sum, which is something that's not immediately noticeable if you take a look at the formula, but it is indeed still a 0 sum formula, which is obviously really good. The match score takes a significant part, and the higher the delta between the average match score of the winning and losing team, the higher on average the shift on each team is going to be, like either up or down. So those were some of those things. And other data that I would like to call out is in game 3. If you look at the blue team, we have 2 people that are doing like kind of similar.
Mm-hmm.
You should see my cursor, Bob.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I got it.
And they have a match score difference of 60, which, if we're gonna be honest, isn't that much. But it's still the difference between getting a noticeable, though not massive, pilot skill shift and positive, and basically staying where you are. So that's kind of interesting to just see how much of a difference even a small difference in match score can make. Yeah, and then obviously we have some of the outliers that Bida already pointed out. The guys in game 3 who did extraordinarily well, like over 600 match score is 1 in 1,000 games for most people. at least, and
Yeah.
they got rewarded accordingly, like over 30 shift, where we said on average the max is gonna be like 25, 26-ish, so over 30, that's an insane shift, which they deserved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most players are, because you have so many players per match, it helps figure out sort of how much an average player would really sort of do. And that's why you've got, at least when you look at the graphs, there's usually a large body of players who are doing okay. They, get 200, 300 match score, maybe at the upper levels, but in every single one of these games, we can see plenty of players, just a couple of players every single time are shooting ahead of the pack. And that's
Yeah.
that is why at least that extra last 60 match score is being extra rewarded, because that is actually a sign of something significant, because they are stepping away from what is normally attained by most players.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like if you look this, the second highest player, who kinda was ±0, is very close to the total average match score, whereas the player who got most significantly got over the average, and that's something Biter pointed out earlier. Total average is kind of where you get either your plus or minus from. Yeah, and then to kind of highlight the worst case scenario, in game 6 on the blue team, there's a guy who got 14 match score. I think he was completely AFK. We spectated him at the end. He did absolutely nothing. And he only got a minus of 23. So that's kind of the absolute worst case. You're not gonna, if you disconnect, you're obviously gonna feel it, but it's not gonna catapult you down like 2 tiers in an instant. It's gonna max out at some point.
Yeah.
Which is also good, because Mechwarrior Online does have disconnects fairly often. So yeah, disconnecting it would be frustrating, but it's not the end of the world. You can make it up with one really good game immediately.
You can, yeah. We'll have to wait and see how it goes, because at least, as I said, the majority of players are usually doing kind of average. But even with average players, I have seen in MWO the kind of snowball effect, where they just get into the right position and they can do a ton of damage. So for all those matches that they happen to unluckily disconnected, they might be quite lucky and do twice as well as they've done. Like within our group, we've had plenty of times where Bob isn't always doing 250 match score. There'll be a time his rack boat will be completely ignored, and he'll pull like 1,000 or 2,000 whatever damage, and be top of the team. And that will counteract the times he randomly disconnects or has a crash or whatever.
Actually, I don't disconnect that much, to tell you the truth. I think I only disconnect like 4 or 5 times throughout my whole time playing. But I mean, I do suck though, so that might be a factor.
A funny question is, for those, MWO isn't the most stable game. So if you disconnect a lot, it's really frustrating coming back and losing skill rating. But if the matchmaker thinks you're a less good pilot, it means you might be getting easier matches. So the times you can play will be better. So whilst some arbitrary XP bar is going down, you might be having a nicer time because of your disconnect.
Right.
And therefore it balances out. It just depends on what perspective you take.
And I absolutely think this is the main takeaway from this whole thing. Now that we're zero sum, your tier means nothing to you. And if you get a lower tier, that's not a bad sign. It just means that most likely your matches are going to be more fun, because you can do more compared to your team.
Which I think, going away from the actual numbers, real quick, Ian, from last night from our games, I mean, is there anything else you would want to see changed, either with the PSR or the game as a whole, or do you think it's good as is so far?
Yeah, we've obviously talked about the one thing that absolutely has to change, and that's spawn points.
Yes.
I mean, we can absolutely go back to the data and just check out some of these matches. Like if you audience have the thing open and take a look at some of those screenshots, you can absolutely see some Assault Max and Alpha Lens doing basically every single game who did absolutely nothing, because the Alpha spawn point is not designed for Assault Max. And especially on maps like HPG Manifold, if you spawn in the Alpha spot, you're dead.
And that happened to you.
It happened to me. There's nothing you can do. You can go the super long way around and completely miss out on the fight and do nothing, or you can try to take the shortest route over to the team, and you're going to be cut off by the enemy team and die in a 1 versus 8 scenario. So
which is why I usually
really
want
frustrating.
a turret assault mech, because then, even if you're a bad spot, you just find a good place to do a valiant last stand and snipe at enemies.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, so I mean, it's one of those things where, like, I mean, whoever's in control of like the map design, or maybe even balance, I guess it might be too, is that they need to find a way to, either redo weight distribution and tweak that, or try to design, like new spawn points that would be like neutral for every map.
yeah,
So everyone has like a equal chance if you're an assault and you get put like an alpha lance and that kind of thing.
yeah, there are two solutions to this issue. Either go back to the old system where your team is sorted by weight and the assaults are always in Charlie lands, because that's how the spawn points were designed to be. Which would indeed mean breaking up your group.
Yeah.
Because currently your group is always in alpha lands if you go into quick play rather than anything else. So you would have to break up your group. If that group has one light and one assault mech, they would be in completely different lenses, which for me personally is fine.
Yeah.
And if PGI for some reason doesn't want to do this, they have to change the spawn points. Like group them a bit more tightly, to the point that whether you're light on assault mech and alpha lens, you can get to the fight without dying.
Yeah, because as it is now, it makes for a like unfun experience if the whole goal is to change the PSR to give you a better overall experience. But that's probably just the one caveat so far that I would look into.
Right now, the upside is that Alpha Lance is the lighter Lance's spawn, and
well, that's
you
the
don't
point.
have to take the heavier mechs. Just take lighter mechs and play it as you should from that spawn point. And on average, the matchmaker will balance out the weight of both sides. So because the group does not need to use all their tonnage. All they need to do is have the best mechs for each weight category class, at least if they want to metagame.
True, but then that comes down to a point of people have to realize that, and
Yes.
I think we've had this discussion in the past where people think that they need to take a heavier mech. So a lot of matches you just see a bunch of like heavies and assaults and maybe like one or two lights. Or sometimes I've seen where it's booted with lights. It doesn't happen often, but I've seen like full light matches. It's been very interesting.
Yeah,
because at least the thing with this current sample is everybody is in tier 3. Everyone's weighed the same, at least to the very beginning, first early hours. For the most part, everyone's weighed the same. As time goes on, the matchmaker will be able to sort people to tiers, and therefore it'll try and better be able to balance people by skill. But yeah, your fundamental issues in those matches were the fundamental issues incurred by the merging of group queue and solo queue, and the loss of the structure in solo queue, which we've discussed in the past. And I think, at least I think we all agree that that is something they do need to look at in future.
Yeah.
And the second thing that we've noticed, I think that's something many people noticed over the past few weeks, is the fact that the tonnage disparity between teams can be really high, and it feels like the tonnage disparity has gone up recently. At least I've seen a lot more screenshots on Reddit complaining about one team having 7 assault mechs and the other having
BrioS had 9 assault mechs.
And Lash, we had some of those games ourselves yesterday, where our team was like super light compared to the enemy assault team, and even though we played that game really well, we lost eventually because they just they had too much armor for us to chew through in the time that they had needed to kill us. So that would be maybe my other point. Take another look at the weighing of the matchmaker, because it's really focused, from what we saw on Paul's posts the past few weeks. It's really weighted towards balancing skill, which is great. And I do think we're going to see a noticeable improvement once the tiers balance back out. But I do think tonnage has to be weighted a bit higher, and I would personally be willing to wait another 30 seconds if it means getting a slightly more balanced team tonnage-wise.
The way to go forward, I think, is just the similar process as what we've done with this player skill rating thing. Paul explains the current system in a post, or at least we would like him to show a little bit more about how it balances tonnage, because that's the thing that people are bringing up. And then the community can make suggestions of how the system with what we've got can be improved, because we just need a formula like with the player skill rating to be able to try and balance teams. Because the problem is right now, at least what vague glimpses we've got in Paul's preview images, is it only sorts by weight category. But mathematically, at least, you should be able to tell the difference between a 20-tonner and a 35-tonner, or an 80-tonner and a 100-tonner, rather than just lumping them all and just assuming a Lance of Zeus's will have the same firepower as a Lance of Fafnir's. So yeah, I think that's going forward. At least the biggest priority I think we would want PGI to work on is explain how it balances the weight, and then let the community suggest some simple solution that allows you, because it should be simple enough to try and write an algorithm or a sorting system to make sure that the weight categories, the teams are balanced out weight wise, particularly since you've got so many solos every single search.
Well, like, probably that's something they'll work on, like, after they make sure the tier system's going on, though. Make sure it's balanced out and everything. So that I would hope they do something.
Yeah, like I'm
Fingers
pretty sure the PSR is probably their main focus.
Yeah.
At the moment.
Yeah.
And then weight balance will probably be next, maybe, or spawn points if they take care to listen to our podcast, change the spawn point. But yeah.
Well, the spawn points only need to be changed because of how different mechs, where they are placed, and how teams are balanced. If you sort out weight and spawn locations, I think the game will be in a very good spot, and we'll be happy. At least as far as the simple changes to quality of life that PGI need to implement, or at least should implement.
Okay, so we do have an extra few minutes. Do you guys want to have some fun and play around with some really weird match score cases?
I don't want to have any fun.
Okay, Bob doesn't want to have any fun. So
Bob's gonna leave.
Yeah. Bob's gonna leave. Yeah, exactly.
All right, Ian. So what do you got?
Well, I have one example that I found absolutely hilarious. Bob, if you scroll down to the second row, there should be a single table of one game. Do you see it?
To which one? To which game?
Is this game S?
Game S.
S. I don't see S. Okay, yeah. Okay, I see it now. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, it's just one of those really borderline cases that I find absolutely hilarious, where you can technically, with a single point of match score, you can technically get 120 pilot skill rating shift in a single game.
That's if none of your team actually does anything.
The average is, of course, so low at 0 if they weren't there. So that because they got 1, they just seem so extraordinary. So
so this is basically to highlight when you take some of the things we've noticed and really crank it to the max. This is what happens if you are on the losing team, but you are this much over the average. Like that's what 12 times.
You have 11 DCs and you pull a 3K game in your scout mech, your light mech, just scratching them to death.
And you get 1 match score.
1 match score. That's just walking on the field, though, right?
The basic thing, what we would need to test is, all the AFK players will get like 50 match score, and you get, 1,000, 2,000, 20,000 match score. That's what we're talking about in terms of scale.
Yeah. So this would be probably more realistic.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, like this is the thing. If you are this much over your team's average, you're gonna potentially get an insane amount of match score.
Player skill rating. Yeah.
Skill rating.
Yeah. I kept making that mistake too.
It's just
I'd like also the above one, just everybody gets the same match score. So the player skill rating shift is, or it was like 13, or now it's 10 each.
Yeah. So this would be another case that's kind of interesting. Even if your whole team is doing extraordinarily well, like 650 match score is insane. But even if your whole team is doing extraordinarily well, you're each just gonna get a tiny boost because your average is this high. So that kind of comes back to the point. You don't want to, if you want to rise in tier, you do not want to play with your friends who are as good as you. You want to play with your friends who are much worse than you and just kind of snack up their match score. So basically, you want to be on the red team in this example, not the blue team.
Yeah.
You sort of want to have a well-coordinated team of sheep rather than a team of sheep led by a lion. if you want to gain match score.
Yeah. And another example would be if it's
Um,
perfectly even, like if you have this really close game, then it's completely down to whether you win or lose.
hmm
Like you can see here, everyone has the same match score, so the only shift is from the 5 you get for winning or losing.
hmm Yeah, which seems fair, and I quite like that. It's able to account for things, which is good. The problem with the previous system, just to bring back my example from previous times, so like everybody got 650 match score in this example. They're all streak boats, and they all streaked each other to the last hit point before one team basically won. In this example, at least, in the old system, all it said was, "Oh, everybody did over 250 match scores, so therefore they go up." And that was sort of the problem. It was not able to account for how well each team did and how well they did to compare to each other, etc., etc. So before it would have just said everyone gets 20 players get match score, whereas this time it realizes it's a close match, so therefore people don't move. So yeah, a much better system.
How about if everyone gets 1 point? Just 1 point.
Gonna be the exact
The
same.
same.
Oh, the same? Yeah. Okay, negative 14
Yeah,
point.
just show him.
Okay, yeah.
Yep, there we go.
Okay.
5,000 across the board.
Everyone does terrible. I think we even have an example of a real world scenario of that, right? Yeah, like
'Cause
the
there might-
last one.
There's always
not
a time
quite.
like where a light mech runs off and captures like the base and assault, and nobody's even got to fight yet, or something like that. In that case, you'd have one player with slightly more match score, and they would be the winning team.
Yeah, in that case, you would have this,
Yeah,
and that would just suck for everyone.
Well, like what we were talking about would be there's the basic you played match score, so it's like 20 for everyone and what 60.
Funny, and then this guy
I'm
got
not sure what the
60.
cap base is. Something like it's 100 or 60 or so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
so-
assume you also killed the tower on the way there. Or you, you put some
Yeah.
sniping shots out, and yeah, like this is probably not going to be fun for anyone except that one light mech.
Yeah, that one
That one-
person will do.
Yep.
Let's hope we didn't just share something that people shouldn't know.
I mean, I've seen
Well-
those games happen, though. You've definitely seen those games happen.
Yeah. Let's hope
Yeah.
we didn't just encourage those games.
I mean, it's not often, but it happens.
Yeah. One other thing, even though, as I said, the example whole, having if both teams just took streak boats and did as much damage as possible, they would always gain match score. If you're a Lance and you want to gain lots of match score, it might still be a good idea to take a lot of streak boats, because streak boats do lots of damage, and lots of damage equals lots of match score, so that you'll be trying to take the upper half of that graph a lot more so. Like you're going to change your team's average more to compare to theirs.
I'm just gonna point out like this particular game where player 1 is me, player 2 is Lars, and we both had streak boats.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Oh,
Which game is
point out
that? Can
that's,
you name?
Yeah, which
No,
game?
game
Game
6. Game 6.
Game
Game
six.
Yeah.
six. Huh.
So yeah, streaks are definitely a great way to gain match score, because damage is still, in my opinion, weighted too much for match score. But that is
Yeah.
something that Paul recognized and hopefully will be addressed once the skill has kind of balanced out.
Well, we've seen the system for a while, and he's figured out how to implement it. Because he also mentioned, of course, weight classes. Going to do way more damage in a heavy on an assault mech than you usually are going to do in a light mech. So
Yeah.
the light mechs, at least under this current system, are not going to be respected as much as skilled players. Even though, obviously, to do well in a light mech requires so much more in terms of,
Skill-wise.
competency, skill to get things done.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is that all for PSR?
I would say for the most part, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say at this point in time, it's doing good. I
Yeah.
mean, I would say keep on doing what they're doing, and hopefully things even out.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a much better system.
Oh,
It's
Yeah.
I mean, there's one thing that we could quickly touch of. They obviously, Bob, if you scroll back up in the sheet, the initial values X, Y, and Z, the names are just so programmer. I love it. Basically, the weighing of win-loss, your match score compared to your team and your match score compared to a total. So you could still play one of those numbers very easily on back end. And I'm just wondering if you guys think there's anything in here that, like, out of these three numbers that should be changed? Or do you think they're fine where they currently are?
So I mean, it ultimately depends how much you want to weigh how well the team, how much match score matters, how much winning matters, how much your team's average matters.
Yep.
Because well, ultimately the whole point is to see individual skill, and at least with 24 total players, the win and the loss isn't necessarily that far down to the individual. So I would say they weigh match score fairly highly. We've seen that in the graphs, that if you
Yep.
get a very high match score, you'll still get pretty good results. So ultimately, I would say actually I'm quite happy with match score being the bigger determinant, where winning and losing, it knocks you down a peg, but it's only a peg. And a peg is fine in terms of the graphs, at least. Yeah, I'm the C value, the final one, comparing it to your team. It's a funny one because it's a question of how much shot calling and helping out your team should be weighted. At least me personally, I do, at least when I play solo, a lot of shot calling. I try and move the pugs around and stuff and make sure that my team win, and that results in a good win-loss, which already helps out. But and sometimes, at least with good shot calling, you don't necessarily see players do better on average necessarily. When you shot call, you tell everyone go, 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 and we all push, and somebody takes the brunt of the fire. There's sharing armor in MWO. Yeah. In that case, at least, again, it's just sad that the player who helps gain the win, the Atlas who pushes, isn't going to earn a lot of match score. So in the end, at least, they won't be respected in the match score, but the win will slightly help them out. And the team average, if everybody else is doing all the damage, that will also slightly hurt them, I think it is. But in the end, it's just really hard to count, to catch all the variables. So in the end, the most basic way we have to measure what you do in the game is match score. And whilst it won't show everything, and I think your team's average and win-loss should take an effect, I think match score is just basically the best way to go to tell who's really pulling in the legwork.
True. Okay, so is that all now, guys?
Yeah, that's all. The new algorithm's been implemented. It makes sense. It'll take a while. As we said, it will take 150 matches, 40 hours of play for people to really sort of be sorted out.
Yeah, definitely.
And bigger factors like just balancing of weight of the teams and balancing skill of teams, etc., have just as much of an impact as this whole player skill ranking thing is. And that's the biggest thing that's going to affect players in the few weeks to come.
Yeah, basically a few weeks to come, we'll figure out more of what's going on, and of course we'll be talking about it in the podcast as well.
Yeah,
guys, enjoy our conversations about statistics.
yeah.
Spreadsheet Warrior Online.
Where's kind of
Mechwarrior
management?
management.
Exactly. So that was episode 124 of the First Circuit Podcast. Thank you for being with us, and tonight's episode is brought to you by Biter,
Larg,
Ian,
Bye-bye.
Larsh.
See ya, and happy 4th of July and Canada Day or whatever it was.
Yes.
Stay safe. Stay safe.
Stay safe too.
Stay safe, and Oldbobs 1025. Stay safe and have a good weekend, guys. See you guys later.
Hey.